In an earlier video, we explained that we could be facing the largest humanitarian crisis we have seen in human history, a sexual holocaust. The sexual holocaust is a multidimensional global crisis stemming from unrestrained sexual behaviors that have resulted in profound harm to humanity. We explained that unrestrained sexuality has affected all aspects of our humanity: the physical, emotional, social, and spiritual. In an earlier video, we discussed the physical harms caused by anything goes sexuality. And in this video, we are going to explore the emotional harms caused by anything goes sexuality. Unrestrained sexuality leads to loneliness. Studies show that loneliness is now an epidemic. It is one of the top fears in the world. Only about half of the American population has in-person, meaningful, daily interactions with friends or family, which is amazing given the quantity of different ways we communicate today. People are rapidly withdrawing from real relationships because virtual relationships are easier and involve no emotional commitment. This shows that relationships have become increasingly shallow today. Unrestrained sexuality leads to rejection. Sexual relationships are meant to be loving and fulfilling. However, anything goes sexuality creates temporary and fleeting relationships, which do not involve either love or fulfillment. The result is a strong feeling of rejection. Rejection is the spurning of another person's affections. Rejection hurts more than physical pain, because if we recall a time when we were rejected, we hurt all over again. Physical pain does not flare up every time we think about it. This comparison shows the difference between emotional and physical pain and how severe the emotional pain caused by unrestrained sexuality can be. Unrestrained sexuality leads to depression. More than 75% of those suffering from depression experience some form of trauma as a child. Studies are showing that genetic vulnerabilities seldom lead to depression unless an individual has experienced trauma earlier in their life. In a previous video on the physical harms caused by unrestrained sexuality, we saw the rampant nature of sexual abuse. Therefore, it is easy to see how childhood exposure to unrestrained sexuality could be a primary cause of much of the depression we see today. Unrestrained sexuality leads to suicide. About 1 person every 40 seconds commits suicide. Suicide is the consequence of a major emotional breakdown in one's life. It is a consequence of traumas or stresses that seem too large to handle. Anything goes sexuality affects the whole person, creating the multiple stresses and traumas that can lead to the type of overwhelming depression that leads to suicide. One way to picture this is like a snowball rolling down a hill that gets bigger and bigger as it goes. We call this the snowball effect. Unrestrained sexual behaviors result in emotional consequences, which lead individuals to escape into more unrestrained sexual behaviors. Those unrestrained sexual behaviors cause more physical and emotional harm, which starts the cycle all over again. This cycle continues to repeat itself until an individual can find his or her way out of the cycle, or until it becomes too much to handle. Suicide is too often an individual's way out of this cycle. After considering the emotional effects of unrestrained sexuality, it becomes evident that we must stand up and do something to stop this global crisis. Every individual can be a catalyst for change. We can work together to protect each other and to protect the weak and innocent. And we can hold institutions accountable. Together, we can be the change.